Welcome back to Movies Outpost. Today we'll be diving into an action thriller film titled Revolver. Enjoy the recap. After being locked up for 7 years, the street-smart gambler Jake Green is finally out of prison. A couple of years later, he and his brother Billy visit a major local casino. Their goal? To retrieve money that the casino's owner, the notorious Dorothy Matcha, owes them. His bodyguard Paul suggests he shouldn't allow Jake to join his private game, but he doesn't heed the advice. On their way up, Jake is reluctant to use the elevator because he's claustrophobic. The other guards tell him about the long climb of 20 floors, so despite his fear, Jake gets in. As he battles a panic attack, he loses his initial bet on a chip toss to another player. But it's all part of his plan. He uses this tactic to catch Matcha off guard, and when he places the same bet with Matcha, he wins. With bags full of money, Jake and Billy quickly try to exit the casino. As they do, a man named Zach stops them, warning them of impending danger and offers his assistance, handing Jake his card. Opting for the stairs this time, Jake collapses before even descending a single step. The card Zach gave him humorously reads, "Take the elevator." As Jake is whisked away to the hospital, Matcha confides in Paul, fearing that Jake's after a bigger payback due to their shared history, especially the incident involving Jake's sister-in-law. Taking no chances, Matcha directs Paul to find the most skilled hitman to eliminate Jake. At the hospital, doctors can't pinpoint why Jake blacked out, advising him to rest at home and wait for the results from his blood test. Billy heads home while Jake is accompanied by bodyguards for safety. But upon their arrival, there is a card on the floor that reads, "Pick this up." As he does so, they're ambushed. All the bodyguards are shot, and Jake narrowly escapes thanks to the card on the ground. He manages to shoot some of the hitmen and attempt an escape, but his attempt to drive away is thwarted when his driver is shot. However, Jake's fortune turns when Zach swoops in just in time to rescue him. Jake escapes with Zach and they leave the scene. Sorter, the hitman, is perplexed by his miss. He's known for his impeccable aim. He theorizes that someone might have warned Jake, but when confronted by Matcha, he admits he had an unsettling feeling which caused his miss. Zach then introduces Jake to his associate, Avi. Avi presents Jake with his medical records. The shocking news: Jake has a rare blood condition that will take his life in just 3 days. Zach and Avi offer their protection but with 2 non-negotiable terms. Jake must hand over all his money and follow any command, including answering any queries. They give him a few hours to mull it over. However, Jake departs without a response, suspecting they're conning him. He gets his test results from the hospital, which match what Avi showed him. Suspicious, Jake believes Avi and Zach might have bribed the lab. Seeking clarity, he visits his personal doctor, who sadly confirms the dire diagnosis. Jake, with his trust in everyone shattered, pulls out his gun to ensure his private doctor isn't being bribed. But faced with the stark reality of his condition, Jake withdraws money and reluctantly agrees to Zach and Avi's terms. As they drive around, Avi reveals they're loan sharks. The twist? It will be Jake's own money they'll loan out. After dropping off cash to a client, Avi pushes Jake to spill about his past with Matcha. Jake recounts the tale of the 3 Eddies, inept henchmen of Matcha. They roped Jake into a card game by threatening his brother's family. The game took a dark turn when insults flew, leading Jake to start a shootout. In the aftermath, with power out and money missing, Jake was framed. To seal his lips, they targeted his niece, accidentally killing his sister-in-law. Jake took the fall, never naming Matcha, and was sentenced to 7 years. During Jake's time behind bars, the Eddies angered Matcha and met a cement-laden fate. After collecting funds from various clients, Zach guides Jake to a motel for safety. Simultaneously, Matcha and his ally Paul seek to strike a deal with the enigmatic crime lord, Sam Gold. But instead of gold, they converse with his representative, Lily Walker. She brokers a drug deal and sternly reminds Matcha of Gold's disdain for attention and his no-second-chance policy. Later, while playing chess with Avi, Jake delves into his prison days. He'd been offered 2 choices, 14 years in general population or 7 in solitary. Jake opted for solitary. His adjacent cells housed a chess virtuoso and a seasoned conman. Though they never directly conversed, they knew all about one another. For the initial 5 years of his confinement, Jake, the chess master, and the conman had a unique way of communicating. They'd scribble notes and library books passed between them. Through this method, Jake learned their unbeatable gaming strategy. The duo planned an escape, assuring Jake they'd bring him along. Yet, when the day came, they left without a trace, leaving Jake behind. Upon his release 2 years after, Jake discovered they'd taken all his funds, only leaving a note which read, "You can only get smarter by playing a smarter opponent." Jake harnessed this strategy, using it to accumulate wealth at various casinos. While Jake's days consisted of visiting clients and dispersing his money, he found himself unable to threaten them for repayments, empathizing with their desperate circumstances. On the other hand, Avi and Zach had a daring plan. They attached a wall to a truck, planning to yank it down to swipe a safe on its other side. This wasn't just any safe. It contained the drugs Matcha had agreed to supply to Lily. Matcha, learning of the theft, dispatches Paul to rectify the situation. Paul approaches their competitor, Triad leader Lord John. Despite the urgency, Lord John agrees to supply the drugs, but at a steep price. Now, Jake, Avi, Zach and their crew prepare for a rendezvous at the hotel where the crucial exchange is slated to occur. Positioning themselves strategically, Jake's team occupies a room adjacent to Matcha's and John's goons. Quietly, they drill a hole and release a sleeping gas. As the men from both sides drift into unconsciousness, Jake's crew swiftly seizes both the cash and the powder. They cleverly set the scene to appear as though Matcha and John betrayed each other. Later, a concerned Billy calls Jake with a dire warning. Word on the street is that Zach and Avi are so formidable that even the feared Gold wouldn't dare cross them. Billy urges Jake to steer clear, but Jake, driven by determination, remains undeterred. Back on the job, he's handed a loaded situation. Expected to intimidate a frightened client, Jake can't pull the trigger. Instead, he aims at Avi. But to his shock, the gun is empty. Avi swiftly incapacitates him. After awakening in the motel, Jake receives a call from Avi. It's been 3 days since the diagnosis. Avi suggests Jake seek medical reassurance. Post-visit from his concerned niece and Billy, Jake meets his doctor. To his relief, the previous deadly diagnosis is overturned. Jake's health is intact. Frustrated, Jake demands clarity from Avi but receives only cryptic responses. Elsewhere, Paul's investigations point towards Jake's involvement in their recent troubles. Matcha, with mounting evidence, orders Jake's elimination. Upon Jake's return to the motel, Avi and Zach intercept him with a chilling revelation. Matcha's henchmen await him inside. As Jake flees, a pursuit ensues. In the ensuing chaos, one in a twist of events, Matcha's goons stumble upon their injured comrade and immediately assume it's Jake's handiwork. Jake, searching for answers, confronts Avi and Zach at their office. There, the duo unveils a deeper layer to the story surrounding Jake's truce with the Eddies. Upon his prison release, the Eddies sought vengeance. To stay alive, Jake made them an offer: a consistent 3% of any money they'd lend him. Initially skeptical, one Eddie took the bait. However, as Jake consistently upheld his end, all Eddies wanted in, now demanding 4%. Jake's trick was simple but brilliant. He used each Eddie's money to pay the other, ensuring he wasn't at a loss. As the Eddies exhausted their resources, they turned to Matcha for loans. Curious about their newfound wealth source, Matcha soon learned of Jake's involvement. But by then, Jake had capitalized on the formula, amassed a fortune, and opted for a timely retreat with his family. Matcha, feeling betrayed by the Eddies' inability to repay, dealt with them permanently. Meanwhile, Matcha enjoys a luxurious meal when his men interrupt with news of Jake's escape. Among the patrons, Sorter spots John's partner, disguised as a waitress. Acting impulsively, he fires at her. Yet his aim remains unreliable. Injured but alive, she retaliates, maiming one of Matcha's fingers amidst the ensuing chaos. As if drawn into a vendetta, Sorter proceeds to Lord John's sanctuary, determined to eliminate him and his crew. Throughout these events, Jake remains engaged in conversation with Zach and Avi. Their backdrop: an unconventional game of golf atop a building. They reveal to Jake that gold is not a real entity. Instead, he symbolizes the ego and epitomizes greed, exerting influence only over those who believe in him. Jake's challenge is to redefine what influences his choices and actions. Subsequently, Jake withdraws all his funds from the bank, generously donating everything. Later, he stealthily enters Matcha's chamber. As he grapples with his internal demons, Jake offers Matcha an apology for his previous deceptions, acknowledges Matcha's dominance in the criminal world, and informs him of the charitable donation made under Matcha's name. Jake then decides to face his anxieties and takes an elevator, which halts unexpectedly on the unlucky 13th floor. Amidst an oncoming anxiety attack, he mentally confronts and renounces his ego, liberating himself from the metaphorical game. As the elevator resumes its descent and opens on the ground floor, Jake is met by an armed and unhinged Matcha. But Jake, having found inner tranquility, calmly bypasses him. This act confounds and infuriates Matcha, who is unable to fathom why Jake isn't terrified of him, leading Matcha into a tearful breakdown over his realized impotence. The following day, Paul presents various newspapers to Matcha, all of which highlight his newfound philanthropy. While Jake's declaration about the charitable donation in Match's name was truthful, the community now perceives the once feared casino magnate as benevolent. Although Matcha momentarily revels in this newfound image, his delight is ephemeral. Paul unveils that Jake possesses the coveted powder, revealing Jake's masterful manipulation throughout. Paul, Sorter, and the other enforcers from Match's gang confront Billy, suspecting betrayal. Recognizing danger, Billy quickly hides his daughter in a cupboard. Billy realizes he's been given away by one of his own men. They ruthlessly interrogate him. Despite his honest pleas of ignorance regarding Jake and the sought-after powder, Paul's methods grow more and more brutal. The situation takes a disturbing turn when the girl's muffled cries reveal her hiding place. Paul's methods start to irritate Sorter, and when he sees him grab the girl, he experiences an inner transformation, turns on his comrades, eliminating them one by one. However, a fatal oversight costs him his life. In another part of town, Matcha receives a visit from Lily. She hands over a wreath, a foreboding message from Gold, expressing displeasure over Matcha's unwanted media attention. Lily ominously hints at Matcha's impending doom, triggering another of his anxiety-fueled breakdowns. In Matcha's opulent casino, Jake finds himself playing chess with Avi, who eventually bests him in the game. As the match unfolds, Avi divulges a startling revelation. Both he and Zach, it seems, had been the unseen inmates in adjacent cells to Jake, always yearning to reach out. The suggestion that they might only exist within Jake's psyche leaves him reeling. However, before he can fully process this information, Matcha's enforcers arrive to usher him to a face-off with Matcha, who menacingly holds the girl. As Jake stands before Matcha, he calmly places the powder on the ground and tries to reassure his niece. Matcha, frustrated and incensed by Jake's unyielding composure even in the face of mortal danger, reaches a breaking point. As ego-driven voices in his head crescendo, they persuade him that he's beyond Jake's influence if he's no longer alive. Overwhelmed and seeking an escape from his torment, Matcha raises the gun to his temple and pulls the trigger. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and I'll see you soon.